There's a version of you that nobody knows about yet. A version that wakes before the world stirs, that trains when others scroll, that builds in silence while the crowd demands noise. You study, you train, you remain silent. You act, you build, you conceal. You suffer, you grow, you say nothing. Most men leak their power the moment they feel it rising. They announce plans before executing them, expose wounds before healing them, and hand their enemies a map to every door they haven't locked yet. But you are watching this for a reason. Something in you already knows that the most dangerous man in any room is not the loudest one. He's the one who listens, observes, and reveals nothing. Transformation is not a broadcast. It is a quiet war fought in private. And the first weapon you must master is not a skill, it is your silence. The Stoics understood something that our hyper-connected, oversharing culture has almost completely forgotten, that speech is not just communication, it is transaction. Every word you speak is a withdrawal from your personal power account, and most men are spending faster than they are earning. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of history's most self-disciplined minds, wrote for himself and never for an audience. His private meditations were never intended to be published. He processed his doubts, his fears, and his aspirations in complete silence. And yet he led an empire through war, plague, and betrayal without fracturing. He understood that the internal world must be protected like a fortress, because the moment you expose its walls, you invite siege. Seneca warned with surgical precision that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and that much of that suffering is born from giving others access to our inner world before we have fully inhabited it ourselves. Epictetus, a man who was literally enslaved, taught that the one thing no one can take from you is your mind, but only if you guard it with discipline and do not voluntarily surrender it through careless speech. Ryan Holiday, who has built a modern philosophy movement around Stoic thought, consistently reminds his audience that ego is the enemy of mastery, and that talking about what you are going to do satisfies the same neurological reward as actually doing it, which means you rob yourself of motivation every time you announce your ambitions. James Clear writes about identity-based habits, the idea that who you believe yourself to be shapes every action you take. Robin Sharma teaches that mastery lives in the private hours. Mark Manson cuts through illusion by arguing that most people mistake noise for meaning. All of them, across centuries and disciplines, are pointing at the same truth: protect your inner world. Guard your silence like it is gold, because it is. The first thing you must never expose to anyone is your personal conflicts and the details of your private life. When your relationship is struggling, when your family is in chaos, when the walls of your personal world feel like they are closing in, the instinct is to talk, to vent, to unload the weight onto anyone who will listen. And the world will always offer willing ears, because other people's pain is entertainment dressed in empathy. But here is what happens the moment you expose your private battles. You redefine yourself in the minds of others, not as a man moving through difficulty, but as a man defined by it. People remember what you tell them. They file it quietly. They use it as a lens through which every future version of you is filtered. The man who complains about his marriage becomes the man with the broken marriage. The man who airs his family drama becomes the family drama. Marcus Aurelius never told Rome about his pain. He processed it privately, and he showed up as an emperor. The strongest men in history were not men without wounds. They were men who dressed their wounds in private and walked into the arena whole. Your conflicts are yours. Contain them, process them, conquer them in silence, and let the world only see the version of you that emerged victorious from the fire. The second thing you must guard with everything you have is your deepest insecurities and your rawest weaknesses. There's a modern cultural pressure, disguised as vulnerability and authenticity, that tells you to open every wound in public, to display your trauma like a badge, to make your inner fractures visible as proof of your humanity. But there is a profound difference between processed vulnerability shared in wisdom and raw weakness broadcast for validation. When you tell people what you fear, you hand them a key. When you reveal what makes you feel small, you invite them to make you smaller. Epictetus was a slave who understood that true freedom is internal, and that no one can diminish you without your participation. Your insecurities are the blueprint of your psychology, and sharing them prematurely, before you have done the work, before you have faced them and begun transforming them, is handing that blueprint to people who may or may not wish you well. Silence around your weaknesses is not denial. It is strategy. It is the discipline of a man who is doing the internal excavation without requiring an audience for the digging. The third thing you must never reveal is your plans, your goals, and your next moves. This is perhaps the most psychologically dangerous leak of all, because it feels productive. Talking about your goals feels like progress. It creates a warm social response, a sense of momentum, the illusion of motion. But neuroscience confirms what the Stoics knew philosophically. The act of announcing an intention triggers a premature sense of completion. Your brain registers the social recognition and partially satisfies the drive that would have pushed you to actually execute. Ryan Holiday has written extensively about how ego whispers to us that preparation is achievement, that talking is building, that planning is arriving. The man who tells everyone he's going to start a business, write a book, transform his body, or change his life very often becomes the man still talking about those same things years later, wondering why his life has not moved. The man who simply disappears into execution and reappears transformed, that man creates gravity. Silence is not passivity. Silence around your goals is the most aggressive form of discipline that exists. Act in silence. Build in darkness. Emerge in light. The fourth thing you must never share is the quiet kindness you extend to others and the private favors you do without expectation. When you help someone, when you give without being asked, when you carry someone else's burden for a moment, and then announce it, you corrupt the act entirely. You have converted a gift into a transaction, a kindness into a performance, a moment of genuine humanity into a social currency exchange. Seneca wrote about the nature of true generosity as something done without any desire for recognition or return. The man who broadcasts his goodness is not a good man. He is a man who needs approval more than he needs virtue. Real power is silent giving. Real strength is anonymous grace. When you extend kindness and tell no one, you build something inside yourself that no external validation can build. A character so solid, so deeply rooted in genuine virtue, that it requires no audience to exist. So how do you actually live this? How do you build the habit of silence as power when the entire world is engineered to pull your thoughts out of you, to monetize your oversharing, to reward your exposure? You begin before the world wakes up. The early morning hours, before the noise, before the notifications, before anyone else has made a claim on your attention, are where this identity is forged. You sit with yourself. You journal privately, not for an audience, but for your own excavation. You train your body in those hours, because the man who disciplines his physical self is also training the deeper muscle of self-containment. You do not post every workout. You do not announce every decision. You do not narrate your transformation as it is happening. You let it happen in the dark, the way roots grow underground for months before a single leaf breaks the surface. You control your reactions. When someone provokes you, when life destabilizes you, when something shakes your foundation, you breathe, you observe, and you choose your response with the deliberateness of a man who knows that his reaction is his identity made visible. Every time you choose silence over impulse, you cast a vote for the man you are becoming. James Clear's architecture of identity is not complicated. You are not the man who wants to change. You are the man who already is changing. Vote by vote, silence by silence, action by action. Build your physical strength with the same energy you once gave to your words. Build your mental clarity with the time you once spent explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand anyway. Stop performing your journey. Live it. The man who needs no validation becomes the man others seek validation from. The man who guards his silence becomes the man whose words carry weight when he finally does speak. This is the Stoic path, not cold, not emotionless, but fiercely intentional. You are the sum of what you protect, what you refuse to expose, and what you quietly build in the hours when no one is watching. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is mastery. And action, quiet, relentless, compounding action, that is your glory.